Hey guys, and welcome to part 2 of reviewing our subscribers' bird cages and enclosures. We're really excited today and we're hoping to fit a bunch more of you in for part 2. If you didn't catch part 1, make sure you go watch it. Here's a list of the things we're going to be looking at when reviewing these enclosures. Number 1 is the size of the enclosure.
We're also going to be taking a look at the bar spacing. Is it too big or too small?
Also, cage material. What is your cage even made of?
The perching is a big one. Is it all one size, or do you have lots of different options for your bird?
And number 5 is food and water bowls. Are you using stainless steel, plastic? How are you going about it?
Number 6, we're going to be looking at toys and enrichment. Is there enough? Are they high quality, or are they potentially triggering hormones? The first submission that we're looking at today is from Denise. And so we are looking at these pictures for the very first time. We have not gone through these, so you actually get our real reactions in real time. So to begin, we'll take a look at the very first photo. And the good thing is I see lots of things that we can do to make some improvements.
So it's hard for me to tell what's inside and what's on the outside actually, but I think I'm starting to get a basic idea. This is a very tall enclosure. If we want to just talk about the size of the enclosure first, it's super duper tall. And what we've found with our experience with birds is they like things that are wide, so they can go this distance. They're less likely to utilize probably the bottom half of their enclosures most of the time when they go really tall. So it can be difficult no matter what kind of enrichment you can put down there. Typically, it's pretty hard to get them to utilize this. I see that there's a few perches and some enrichment down below there, but I think that overall, if we could just take this cage and be like, whoop, it would be serving it so much better if that was possible. Now, I know that this is difficult because not a lot of cage makers on the market are taking this into consideration, but hopefully we can change that.
All right, well, let's look over on photo number 2. This is looking at the right side of the cage. And my first glance is just noticing the rope toy. And I know that this is on the outside, but just the rope perch itself is something we just have to be super careful of, keeping a really close eye on it. I do think that Denise paid some attention to this because it's not on the inside of the cage. By having it on the outside of the cage, it's easier and it's safer for her bird to not get entangled with it. But the problem with these toys is, or I keep saying toy, this particular type of perch is birds will pick at it a little bit and they can ingest some of those materials, which end up showing up in the necropsy later. So we want to be super careful. Also, they can get entangled, and there's tragic stories out there of how that ends.
So one of the things that we tried maybe 12 years ago is I tried these food feeders called friendly feeders, and they were supposed to contain the mess, kind of like the picture I see here of the blue plastic thing with the thing. We'll just circle that so you guys know what the heck I'm talking about. Those are typically to contain the mess so that it's easier on us humans. What I will say though is they tend to look gross really fast, and they can definitely spark some hormonal responses because small birds especially can fit right in them and just lay in there. I found with my budgie blueberry, if I give her too large of a dish that she can actually just plop her whole body in, she's most likely to get super hormonal. So I try to stay away from these. Also, we typically try to stay away from plastic feeders and we try to go towards stainless steel. This is just because overall it ups the health and they're easier to clean. They won't grow bacteria as easily as long as you're cleaning them. And it's just
overall,
it can be way better. Also, these little travel, I remember we used to travel with those little ones.
Yeah. And they always fell out.
They always fell out. And birds, well, they can do redirected aggression and just flip those suckers. So I think that's the other cool thing about using the stainless steel cage attachments for the bowls is that typically they come with a little like lip to keep that in there. So I would probably upgrade all of the feeding stations to stainless steel if possible. That would be awesome.
Something I'm noticing too is it looks like there's almost toys in this little feeder. In the one that you're talking about that's off the edge of the cage, it almost looks like eggs in a nest. And so just kind of to echo what you're saying, you know, being careful of not triggering hormones. And speaking of triggering hormones, I do see a bell on the bottom of one of these toys inside. And so that's something that if this was my cage, I would immediately get rid of that toy or just remove the bell. But we definitely want to be going more towards natural toys versus things that have plastic and cotton ropes and things like that. We want to be more in the realm of easy, destructible, as you can see on our tree behind us. Like, think more of the natural tones versus these really colorful things.
Also, what I've noticed is there is like a bridge or a ladder sort of thing. Those things are typically made from bent wire, and then the wire has to do something at the end, and we've seen a lot of tragedy happen from that. So I would definitely recommend a different style that doesn't use that bent wire, just so that we can mitigate the risk of what's in the cage, because birds do typically spend a lot of time in their enclosures, and when they're interacting with their environment, we don't want them to get injured in doing that. So that's something that I would also look for a natural, again, replacement of.
So right now I want your feedback. Before we get too far into this video, what do you guys think looks right, and what do you think you would make an improvement on if this was your cage at home? Leave that in the comments below so we can also engage with you down there. Okay, so switching to the third photo, and I'm gonna beat Jamie to it because it's a passion for both of us. But the fabric, the snuggle hut, if you will, it's going to trigger hormones, and it's, as you can see too, it's not super clean, and so it can harbor bacteria, and just there's a lot of things about it that just they're not safe.
Snuggle huts have killed more birds than they've helped, so I would get that sucker out of their stat.
Yeah.
Birds tend to get in there, they get nesty. Everybody always like, but my bird loves it. And it's because it becomes a nesting ground. They get in there, it's dark and cozy and comfy, and then they start chewing on it, and many birds ingest it and end up having to go in for like life-threatening surgery. So avoid it altogether. No snuggle huts, none whatsoever. You can search a blog over on our website about it. It's really horrific what these things have done, and I wish people would take them off the market.
It might sound like we're going to be pretty harsh to Denise on this, which is not my intention, but my intention is that these shouldn't be sold because people are tricked into buying them. But also, just at the top of the left and right of the snuggle hut, you see a lot of frayed rope. And that also is not a good sign. So those are dangers that I would just start to get rid of all of those types of things as fast as possible.
Yeah, and a quick tip, one, I love that Denise is using pine cones. We have an awesome blog on pine cones, how to utilize them when you find them out in nature, how to prep them so that they can go into your bird's cage. And then we also have some really fun recipes in our cookbook, our Healthy Holidays one, utilizing pine cones in a really fun foraging way. So I think that's super cool that she is using something like that. I will say, quick tip is to take your guys' perches and throw them in your dishwasher and run them to clean them. They have to be done quite often, because if you think about in the wild, it's raining, those branches are naturally cleaned by nature, and here inside we have to do it. So a really quick tip, instead of just trying to scrub those things, you can either soak them or you can put them through the dishwasher, which I really love because it sanitizes them.
Or you can pressure wash it too, which obviously depending on the time of year and where you live, that's going to be harder. But a little tip that we have is we put a dishwasher in our garage. Now our garage stays temperature controlled during the winter so it doesn't freeze, but it's a separate small dishwasher that is only for birds. So if the idea of putting that in your dishwasher grosses you out like it did me, you can buy, it was relatively inexpensive to buy this other one and install it in a room, and you could even put one in your laundry room, or like they have portable dishwashers, which is what we permanently installed. So, yeah, but it's a smaller one.
Small perches like this, you could just have a tub of water and soak it, and then it's gonna come clean way more easily, and we like to dry them in the sun, which is really cool. So yeah, just a few tips there.
All right, moving on to the fourth photo. We're getting a little bit of a glimpse at the bottom. I can't tell what the material is at the bottom for, it almost looks like bedding like you would use for
like sawdust?
Yeah, but then up here it looks like the coconut husks in the little tray. Like
that's true.
It's like what we're using in the snake's cage.
I think there is a grate over it though, so I don't think the bird can access it, which would be my main... Is that the grate,
or are you looking at the side of the cage?
I guess I'm not sure. So that is one thing, and we have a hard time telling in some of these videos and photos, but we always want to separate like where the bird is pooping from the birds themselves if we can, especially with the small birds who tend to get under that paper and nest. Now, in our garage setups, we don't have a way to do this, but our birds stay off the ground, which is great, unless they're doing redirected aggression on that paper. Jinx, love you so much. But typically, especially when offering something like this, we want them up and out of it. So I'm looking at a grate over it, but I don't know. I think maybe what this person is trying to do is offer foraging enrichment down at the bottom. And something like that is a really cool idea, but I think it might be better utilized in a bird room, on a bird porch, something like that with like wet grasses. We have some really cool videos of some lorikeets in Australia where Mel did really amazing enrichment for them, and I thought it was so cool to share. And so I would take a look at something like that. I think like the natural grasses and stuff of that nature, especially for small birds, is an awesome way to offer enrichment, but I probably wouldn't go about it quite like this, just because you end up making this area sort of a nesting ground.
Yeah. And then let's hop on over to the 5th photo. And this just gives us, another perspective of some of these toys. The first thing is looking at the quick link on the top right. It's kind of a pear shape. I would swap that out for the other one next to it, I believe is the proper, just an oval shape. The pear ones have a tendency to get caught in the bird's lower mandible and actually get stuck on their beak. Not that it can't happen with the other ones, but the pear-shaped ones, we have seen that more. And then on the left side, there's a carabiner. So be careful with that. If I am reading that or looking at that right, which
I think you are.
Think I am. Just a carabiner can also have that same problem. If the bird bites on it and has its foot there and then releases the pressure, your bird could get its foot or any other part of its body caught in that carabiner, and it would be really difficult to get out of it. So think more in terms of the quick links, and I would kind of get away from those carabiners.
Yeah, I agree. I think overall, your perch selection looks really, really fun. Again, just making sure that you have a schedule of washing that down and making sure that it's nice and clean. And then also creating those barriers between what could be nesting materials and sites from your bird. And then also just switching everything that is not natural material to natural materials, like the toys behind us or birdtrickstoys.com. We have lots of variety in our toys that we can offer you that I think will play to the size of your bird that you have in this cage, but also be a safer version. But I do like the acrylic foraging toy. There's one that has like little
drawers
and stuff, and when that would be a great way to feed your bird pellets for the evening. I think those are super cool as long as you are loading them and then putting them in there really strategically where the bird is utilizing them.
Yeah, but I agree. I like seeing the different perch sizes and selections, and you have some natural stuff in here, and just really focusing on getting rid of the man-made materials and going more towards natural items in the cage. I think you're going to have a much happier, healthier, and safer enclosure. Cool. Should we move on over to the 3rd one here, Rafaela?
Yeah.
I hope I'm saying that right. Okay, so these are brand new for us too. We have not seen these.
Ooh, I like that this is different. This isn't necessarily a bird enclosure. This is like a bird, it looks like a DIY playground.
Super cool though. I like this. Yeah, so just getting to see that both the birds get to hang out on that. Lots of natural materials there. Just finally loaded for us all the way. Lots of natural materials. I'm not seeing any metal wires. I'm not seeing any bells.
I think this one actually does utilize a bent
wire
going all the way up.
The one with the popsicle sticks on it.
Yeah, that is wire through it. But I will say, especially going back to, was it Denise previously? Mm-hmm. Denise, you had kind of a ladder situation going on that was all wire made, and it had plastic beads, I think. And this one that they have, the little cool like natural ladder, that doesn't have any wire in it. That would be a fantastic substitution for you to just get rid of yours and substitute it with something like this. That is a great example of going natural.
And I talked about the cotton rope perch fraying, and then here we have more of a natural like perch material, rope. And this one is less likely to cause an entanglement. You do see that there's some fraying, and I do believe that that's also around a wire, so we'd want to get rid of that before a wire is exposed. But I mean, obviously they're engaging with that, but this material is a better option than the cotton perches. So just for what that's worth. But I think this is really cool looking.
This looks awesome.
All right, let's move on to photo 2 here. And we're actually getting a glimpse inside the cage and getting to see, again, some more of the natural type rope. It does have some bells, so I get rid of the bells.
What a fun foraging toy, though. That one's pretty fun. The only thing you have to be aware of with those types of things, same thing with our party perches that we offer in some of our foraging boxes, is once the birds utilize, like get all of that party out of it, you got to make sure it's not gathering at the bottom of the enclosure. But that looks like such a fun foraging toy. I echo your bell situation, and I see some rubber in there. I think that this ball is all like pushed rubber. So I think going back again, we're just gonna push natural toys, and it's just to avoid injury. We just have seen issues with it where birds get little pieces, and we just don't want them taking the risk of ingesting something like that. Also, this colorful, natural looking toy up at the top of the cage is actually a wire toy. So it is attached the whole way with wire. You just have to be aware of it. It doesn't look like it has any of the opening of the wire like available to the bird, which is awesome. And when you have smaller birds like she does, it's less of a risk than with the larger ones. But we've talked about it here at BirdTricks, we just will never use wire in any of our toys. So I think honestly the better approach is to just eliminate using it altogether.
I do like this little platform on the outside of the little door. It almost looks like a little stationing platform.
Oh yeah, it's like a little piece of wood. We have some of those. I haven't actually put them in any of the cages, but I think they're adorable.
That's cool. Lots of perch selection. The cage bar spacing looks good. Or sizing, I should say.
Yeah, I love that there's a lot of perch variety, a lot of natural perching. They also have some that are going to trim the bird's nails naturally. Just a lot of awesome variety. Again, one of my favorite things to see you guys do is utilize the outside of the cage too, because it lets me know where you want your bird to go when it's outside of its cage and giving it more options, which is super cool.
So jumping back, still on the second photo, looking at the chains, at the base of the chains that's holding the log with like the party perch stuff on it, the little clips that are attaching that are definitely a dangerous type of clip. Similar to the carabiner, where they can apply pressure to open it, but then it's going to use spring steel to keep to bend back into position, and it's a snag hazard that your bird could get a toe caught in. It could get stuck on its beak. So I would probably look at a different way to mount that, and you could even go get two what do they call it? Quick links. Two quick links, and just attach it directly to there and attach that directly to the side of the cage. And that might be an option for you. And then you would eliminate the chain and be a little closer to the kind of the natural feel that we encourage. So
I love that idea. It's a great idea.
All right, moving on to the third photo. Near the cement perch at the top, I see one of the pear-shaped quick links. So I would just swap that out. But these toys look great.
Yeah.
And look at the different foraging opportunities in some of these. And
yeah, you can tell they're actually actively engaging with these toys, which is super cool. I love that.
Looks like stainless steel dishes. I'm not seeing
I
any
maybe
other...
see a little plastic up at the very top in pink, but I mean, this is looking really, really good otherwise.
All right, let's hop over to photo number 4. Nice kind of wide shot. I love that everything's up off the ground. Obviously makes it easier to clean.
I love that you can see that the birds are actively engaging with this environment. The door is open. She's kind of showing you where the dishes are, where different things are. I like that dishes are in completely different areas, so the bird is actively moving around this enclosure. She has a place for all of her supplies, which is super duper cool. Again, my favorite thing is all stuff going outside of the cage so that it just kind of expands your bird's comfort bubble. If they're the type that's just like, leave me in my cage, leave me alone, I'm only going to come out if nobody's near, this is a great way to like expand that comfort bubble. So I like seeing that they're active when they're on the outside of the cage.
Yeah, this is cool. And jumping back to the rope perch again, having it on the outside where it's less likely to be used unsupervised, I don't have a huge issue with it, but again, I would just try to push more to the natural stuff as you can.
Yeah, and those are just important to keep an eye on. Some birds have zero interest in chewing those, and other birds are going to go to town.
It looks like the 5th photo is almost a repeat of the first, if not the exact same one. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, so
awesome.
This is really cool. I love it. This is great. And I think it's exciting too, because there's lots of little things we can do to make improvements. It's not necessarily like, all this is wrong or all this is perfect. Like, we can always make little improvements in our cages. And so I appreciate you guys letting us go through your cage and critique it. It's not something that everybody would be open to. And so, yeah, it's kind of a vulnerable spot, but yeah, hopefully it helps.
And I appreciate the open dialogue. So especially you guys in the comments giving feedback, giving constructive feedback, giving links to things that people can use instead. That all is such awesome stuff in building community. All right, guys, so stay tuned for part 3 coming up next of our reviewing our subscribers' enclosures, because this is super fun and we got so many submissions from you guys. There's going to be a lot of videos.
It's a lot.